What are you here for? It's the first question he asks everyone, because it provokes self-reflection, which is necessary if you want to change. Because over the past 15 years, hundreds of men, women and teens have come to be trained and educated by him. I'm speaking about Mark Hutton, creator and founder of Solid 101. And over the past 15 years, he's been answering the questions that you've all been asking. But not all the answers have come from a textbook. They've come from a lifelong dedication to training, competing as a professional athlete, and touring the country teaching workshops, seminars, and in schools. And now Mark Hutton is here for you. The backstory of how it all began was when a 16-year-old wide-eyed young warrior first stepped into the dojo to learn how to hold his own on the street. But soon after that, he was recognised as a new breed of competitor in the sport of fighting. And it was here he met his long-term manager and coach, Noah Magnus, who saw something unique in Mark when he first arrived at the Dragon's Lair.
Mark has always been sort of one of those once-in-a-lifetime type martial artists. You know, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of combat athletes and martial athletes over the years, but Mark was always a standout even from the beginning. You know, the training that he did and the other sacrifices he made along the way just allowed him to build on sort of a foundation that was already there.
It was at the time when MMA was unheard of in Australia, to the point where it wasn't even sanctioned in most states, because of its barbaric rules and its misrepresentation. So early on, the team were forced to travel the country to find legal tournaments to compete in. They were paid very little, but soon dominated the whole scene. And it was this new breed of professional athlete who defined the sport of fighting in this country. Where brute force and violence was replaced by discipline, hours and hours on the mats, hours under the iron, impeccable nutrition, and a code of conduct that made this young man undefeatable in the ring.
He's pushing his body, he's pushing his mind, he's competed at high levels, he's pushed his spirit, he's pushed it.
You know, everyone was pushed to their absolute limits, so we've seen Mark grow tremendously, and he's just one of those athletes that's willing to sacrifice everything to get what he wants. And you know, that certainly shined through, whether it was his weight training, whether it was his boxing, his jiu-jitsu, his wrestling, his conditioning. There was no give in Mark. You know, he would never stop, he would never give. He'd always do one more rep or one more round.
And unbeatable he was. With a combination of discipline, grueling training and a solid character, Mark Hutton went on to become one of the most decorated fighters of this early time. After winning 20 fights straight, either by submission, knockout or points, Mark took out the middleweight total fighting title, the Pan-Pacific Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu title, and he had earned his black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. But for Mark it wasn't enough. He still wanted to sharpen his sword, and heading overseas to the US at the time when the UFC was making its debut as a serious professional sport was where he was headed. This is where he trained with greats like Randy Couture, Matt Linlin and Chris Liebem. And he put all of it on the line to win gold in the North American Ground Fighting Championship. But it was after 10 years of dedicated competition, testing himself to the extreme in mind, body and spirit, that he discovered where his true passions came from, passing his knowledge on to others. And in 2004, Mark put the fight game to the side and was quickly swept up in full-time coaching.
When he trains you because he knows what you want, how you want to be, how strong you want to feel. And he only pushes you by basically pushing your buttons. That's what he does. He doesn't push you by his ego. He doesn't push you because he wants you to look a certain way. He pushes you because he knows that's what you want.
It's a great honour to watch him grow and being able to watch him improve and pass on to others techniques and things that he's learnt.
I walked into a room of strangers and there was a good probably 30, 40, 50 people there, and I just seen this massive bloke and I'm just like, fuck, he's huge, he's massive, he's one tough bloke. I haven't actually seen anyone of that stature and that sort of build close up in real life before, so yeah. But then when I actually got to speak to him, that was a whole different story.
You know, very little has to do with what happens for that 10 minutes in the cage. It's what happens before that, after that, outside that. But a lot of lessons can be learned in there, and he's managed to be able to pass that on to, you know, people in all forms of life.
It was a funny situation because we were all smashing pads and doing stuff, and he just come up and he was like, right, this is what we're going to do. And the whole world around me was going crazy, and all I heard was just this voice from this giant, and I've never had that sort of focus before in my life ever.
And he's a good coach. He reads you so well. He reads people so well.
Over the past 6 years, he's taught hundreds of people from all walks of life how to get that number one thing that they're most looking for: balance. And now in Solid 101, you have access to Mark Hutton. He's packaged 15 years of all of this knowledge into a program for you. And it's now you can ask yourself,